Hello, welcome back to my channel. Using verbs in English grammar can be really tricky. In as much as we want to avoid them, it's impossible. Verbs are critical in making sentences because they are the main part of the predicate. And they come in different forms and are used in different ways. And one of these verbs is the verb to have. For today's lesson, we're going to learn when to use has, have, and had. Again, if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe and click that notification bell so you'll get updated. Alright, so let's dive into it. Let's read the following sentences. Number 1, Beth has a car. Number 2, we have a coffee break. Number 3, they had their meal. Number 4, she has gone to the store. Number 5, I have seen George. And number 6, my sister had lived in 5 different cities. As you can see, all of these sentences contain the verbs has, have, and had. We also have number 4. You can see here the words has, have, and had. But of course, the first 3 sentences used has, have, had in different ways compared to how they were used in the numbers 4, 5, and 6. And that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson. When do we use the verbs has, have, had in a sentence? Take note, the verbs has, have, and had are the verbs to have. And these verbs can actually function as a main verb or as a helping verb. It is used as a main verb if it is the most important verb in the sentence, but other sentences don't have any other verb aside from the verb has, have, or had. So that makes it the main verb in that sentence. A main verb also shows the action or state of being of the subject. The action, of course, we are talking about verbs. So verbs are action words, just like walk, dance, sing. But sometimes the verb there does not show an action, but instead it describes a state of being. And you call that verb a stative verb. And because main verbs are important verbs in the sentence, that means that they contain the meaning and therefore can stand alone. For example, we have a coffee break. So our verb here is have, and as you can see, there's no other verb in the sentence, and have there contains already the meaning, so therefore it can stand alone, and that is our main verb. The verb have is not an action word in that sentence. Okay, it just states the situation that we have a coffee break. Another example is Beth has a car. So we use has here because Beth is singular. And again, has is not an action word, but instead it states a situation that Beth has a car. But still, has functions as the main verb in the sentence. On the other hand, has, have, and had can function as a helping verb. Now, what is a helping verb? As the name implies, a helping verb is a verb that helps the main verb. Okay, our keyword here is helps. It helps what? It helps the main verb. As a helping verb, it is used to show the verb's tense. For example, when you try to conjugate verbs to show the progressive and the perfect tenses of verbs, that's when you use has, have, or had. Basically, on their own, helping verbs don't show meaning and don't communicate much in the sentence. So therefore, it cannot stand alone, and its main purpose is to help the main verb, which provides the real meaning. This is how it works. So we have helping verb, either has, have, or had, plus the main verb, so you can make a verb phrase. For example, she has gone to the store. So our verb here is has gone. We have the verb has, but again, has does not function here as the main verb, but a helping verb. Our helping verb is has, and the main verb is gone. So this is our verb phrase. Another example is my sister had lived in 5 different cities. So our verb had lived, and had is here as a helping verb, and our main verb is lived. But in this lesson, we will further explore the uses of has, have, or had as a main verb. Okay? And we will do another lesson about the use of has, have, and had as a helping verb. So for the meantime, we will focus on the uses of has, have, and had as the main verb. Here are some of the important uses of the verb have. Number one use is to show ownership. For example, I have 2 balloons. I have a TV, or I have a cell phone. So that shows ownership. The next use is to show relationship. For example, Shane has a husband and 3 kids. This talks about the relationship of Shane to her family. Another use of have is talking about events or activities. For example, let's have a birthday party. In number 4 use is experience. For example, Mark had a great time in London. Another use is when you express the days or parts of days, like when you say, have a great day. So that's it. And the 6th one is about conversations and interactions. For example, they had a big argument yesterday. So these are some of the uses of the verb have, but I'm sure there are still a lot of other uses, but these are the most important ones. I have here a table that contains the rules in using has, have, and had. So as you can see, we have the first row for affirmative sentences. Affirmative sentences are basically positive sentences. And we have negative sentences, how we will use has, have, and had in forming negative sentences, and also in forming questions. Now let's start first with affirmative sentences. In the present tense, if your subject is I, you, we, they, or any plural noun, you need to use have. So again, have is used for plural subjects. I'll just put P for plural subjects. And if your subject is he, she, it, or any singular noun, then you need to use has. Okay? So once again, has is used for singular subjects. There you go. Now if your sentence is in the past tense, you will still use the verb had. So you don't need to think whether the subject is singular or the subject is plural. As long as you know that the sentence is in the past tense, then automatically you need to use the verb had. Now we will go through the other 2 sections here, but for the meantime we will focus on the affirmative sentences, and let's try to answer an activity. Directions: complete each sentence using has or have. Let us practice when to use has or have only. Okay? These 7 items are in present tense. So I have here the rule in using has or have in the present tense. So again, if your subject is I, you, we, they, or any plural noun, you need to use have. But if your subject is he, she, it, or any singular noun, we need to use has. Okay? Let's start answering number 1. I blank an idea. What is our answer? Is it has or have? The answer is have. Now, why have? Because of our subject, I. So remember, when our subject is I, you need to use have. Number 2. Ben blank many girlfriends. So what is the answer? Is it has or have? It is has. Now why has? Because our subject, Ben, is singular. Number 3, I'm sorry, but I blank to go now. What is our answer? Has or have? Of course, it is have. Why? Here is our subject, I, the pronoun I. So therefore, it needs a plural verb, have. Number 4, the car blank no license plate. Has or have? It is has. So we have a singular subject, car. Number 5, we blank a new English teacher. So what is the answer? Has or have? We have a new English teacher. We here is our subject and not the teacher. Okay? You might get confused. You might say that teacher here is our subject, but it's not. Our subject is we, and that is plural. Number 6, the house blank 3 rooms. Is it has or have? It's has. The subject is house, which is singular. And the last item, they blank many cupcakes for sale. Is it has or have? It is have. Why have? Because of our pronoun they, and it is plural. I hope that you got all the answers correctly and you know already how to use has or have in a sentence. Now let's move on to using this time these 3 has, have, and had. These items here 1 to 7 are either in the present tense or in the past tense. Again, if it is singular, has. If it is plural, you need to use have. But if you think the sentence is in the past tense, even if the subject is singular or plural, all you need to use is the verb had. Okay, let's start. Number 1, I blank a shower this morning. Is it has, have, or had? It is had. So this sentence is in the past tense. Number 2, Terry and Bruce blank a new dog named Max. What's the answer? It's have. Now why have? Because your subjects, Terry and Bruce, and it's plural. So you need a plural form of the verb. Next, all of John's sisters blank their ears pierced. Has, have, or had? The correct answer is had. Okay, so all of John's sisters had their ears pierced. So it's done already. Their ears had been pierced already. So therefore, you need to use the past tense of the verb. Number 4, now the children blank big smiles on their faces. What's the answer? Now the children have big smiles in their faces. Okay, so we have here a keyword, the word now, and another keyword, our subject is plural, and it is in the present tense. So we need to use have. Next up, Kathy blank to stay there. What's the answer? Kathy has to stay there. Kathy is singular subject. Number 6, she blanked an accident when she was young. Has, have, or had? The correct answer is had, of course. It's past tense because the accident happened when she was young. So this is our clue that the sentence happened already, that the sentence is in the past tense. So therefore we need to use had. Number 7, I really hope she blanked the time to fix my dress. Has, have, or had? It is has. I really hope she has the time to fix my dress. So here, she is our subject. Okay, so there you go. We're done answering this activity. I hope this time you know already how to use has, have, or had in the sentence. We are done discussing how to use has, have, and had in affirmative sentences. Now let's move on to how we will use have in making negative sentences. Now here's the rule. If the sentence is in the present tense and if your subject is I, you, we, they, or any plural noun, you need to use don't have. But if your subject is he, she, it, or any singular noun, you need to use doesn't have. As long as your sentence is in the past tense, you need to use didn't have for both singular or plural subject. Okay? Now notice that the verb have is not changed here. But what changed here is the verb to do, don't for plural subject, while doesn't for singular subject, and didn't for past tense. Let's try another activity to apply this rule. We have here the rule. Again, if your subject is I, you, we, they, or any plural noun, you need to use don't have. But if your subject is he, she, it, or singular noun, you need to use doesn't have. But in the past tense, you need to use didn't have. So let's start. Number one, she has a job. So how can we make this as a negative statement? So we will say she doesn't have a job. Why doesn't have? Because our subject is singular, so we need to use doesn't have. So here. So it's here. She doesn't have. Number two, I have money in my pocket. So change it to negative statement. We will say I don't have money in my pocket. So it's just very easy. Don't have. Why? Because your subject is plural. So don't have instead of doesn't have. Next one. When I was 6, I had a red bike. What's the answer? When I was 6, I didn't have red bike. Now why didn't have? Because the sentence talks about something that happened in the past when I was 6. So therefore, it already happened. Here, Anne has to go home now. So what's the answer? It is Anne doesn't have to go home now. So Anne is our subject. This sentence is in the present tense, so we need to use doesn't have as our verb. The verb have also is used to form questions. Now we have here the rule. For present tense, if your subject is I, you, we, they, or any plural noun, you need to use do plus subject plus have. But if your subject is he, she, it, or any singular noun, or any singular subject, you need to use does plus subject plus have. So again, do for plural subject and does for singular subject. And in the past tense, again, we will use didn't plus subject plus have. Okay, both for singular subjects and plural subject. Let's take a look at this activity. Here is our statement and we need to change it to a question form. I have here our guide once again. For plural subject, you need to use do plus subject plus have. And for singular subjects, you need to use does plus subject plus have. But in past tense, you need to use didn't plus subject plus have. She has a job. So how can we change it to a question? By the way, this is the negative sentence that we have answered a while ago. and I've just shown it here for reference purposes. Just for you to know how the position of these verbs changed when you make a question. So she has a job. In question form, we could say, does she have a job? Now, why did we use does? Because she is our subject. Again, remember the subject is in the middle of your verbs does and have. Or we could also say, doesn't she have a job? In a negative type of question. Another one is, I have money in my pocket. So how do we change it to a question? You will say, do I have money in my pocket? I have here do plus the subject plus another verb. So do I have money in my pocket? Or we could also say, don't I have money in my pocket? Right? It's just in the negative, don't. Next one. When I was 6, I had a red bike. Change it to a question form. We can say, when I was 6, did I have a red bike? So did, because the action happened already in the past. That's why you need to use the past form of the verb. Did I have a red bike? Or we can say, when I was 6, didn't I have a red bike? So that's how you form questions. And our last example is, Anne has to go home now. Changing it to a question form, we can say, does Anna have to go home now? So why does? Because the subject is singular. Here, the subject is singular. We need to use does. So does Anna have to go home now? Remember, the word have here, the verb have is not changed. Or we could also say, doesn't Anna have to go home now? So this is the negative form of question. Okay, before we end this lesson, let's first have a recap. Again, in affirmative sentences, in the present tense, if our subject is plural, we will use have. And if our subject is singular, we will use has. In the past tense, we will use had. Okay? In forming negative statements, in the present tense, we need to use don't have if your subject is plural, while you will use doesn't have if your subject is singular. But your verb will not be changed if your sentence is in the past tense, didn't have, for singular subject or plural subject. Now, in changing your statements to questions, in present tense, you need to use do plus subject plus have, and you will use does plus subject plus have if your subject is singular. And in the past tense, you will use didn't plus subject plus have. Okay, so we are done discussing how to use has, have, and had. And I do hope that you're able to understand this lesson. And again, for those who haven't subscribed yet, please do, so you'll get updated in my next videos. Okay? I'll see you again in my next video. Have a great day. Goodbye.